Call It Courage, Chapter 2, Part 2. There was no morning mist to dim the splendor of the sunburst across the swinging sea. Far away the wings of an albatross caught its gold as it wheeled and planned against the roof of heaven. The only hint of recent storm lay in the rough and tumbling water. As the sun climbed through the hot hours of morning, it burned into the boy's body like the sacred fire of the great marae of Hikaru. Mafatu's skin blistered and cracked. His tongue swelled in his throat. He tried to call out a prayer to Maui, but his voice was thick. The sounds which came forth were no more than a hoarse cry. The canoe, stripped of sail and meat, without a paddle to guide it, in the swift racing current, twisted and shifted in the rushing water. As 1 hour merged into another, there came moments of fitful, choking slumber, a growing agony of thirst for the boy and his dog. The sun burned into them like an inescapable eye. The current which held Mafatu's canoe fast in its grip was bearing it swiftly on towards a mysterious destination. And thus the day passed, while night once more descended, bringing blessed release from the sun. Now the air was luminous with promise of another day. Out of the sultry mist, the sea emerged, blue and violent. With the coming of this new day, terror raised its head. Mafatu tried to fight it back, to deny its existence, but it gripped his heart with clammy fingers, tightening his throat. He flung himself flat on the floor of the canoe and buried his face in his arm. He must have cried out then. His voice was but a hoarse croak, but it stirred Yuri to life. The dog's ragged tail gave one feeble thump. With the ghost of a whimper, the animal laid his hot nose against the boy's hand. The brave thump of the dog's tail touched Mafatu profoundly. He caught the animal to him, while a new assurance, a new strength flooded his being. If Yuri could have courage to die, surely he, Mafatu, could not do less. In that instant he heard a whir and a fury in the sky above, a beat of wild wings. Looking upward, the boy's dulled eyes made out the widespread wings of an albatross circling above the canoe. "Kiwi," Mafatu cried hoarsely. "Aye, Kiwi." Even as he spoke, the bird wheeled slowly, then flew off straight ahead for the distant horizon. The boy noticed then that the sea current was carrying him almost due southwest. Kiwi's flight moved in exact parallel. Once more it seemed as if his albatross were leading him onward, just as he had led the canoe out of the passage of Hikaru. Mafatu scanned the rim of the horizon. It looked as hard as the cut edge of a stone. But suddenly the boy's heart gave a great leap, and he started forward. It couldn't be. It was a cloud, but the sky was cloudless. Far off in the sea shimmer lay something that was neither sea nor sky. The swells, lifting higher, now revealed, now concealed it. That shadow on the horizon, it was land. The boy flung himself forward, shaking uncontrollably. He seized Yuri in his arms and lifted him up, laughing, crying, "Yuri, Yuri, it's land! Land!" The boy sniffed in the air, and a little whimper broke from him. That island, what island could this be? Was it Tahiti, the golden island, whose language was akin to that of Hikaru? Or was it perhaps one of the terrible, dark island of the eaters of men? Now the current had a westward drift, and it was in the west that the dark island lay. All day as the canoe drifted onward, the boy watched the distant shadow shape of land, not daring to take his eyes from it lest it vanish into the sea. Hunger and thirst were lulled into forgetfulness. There was only this one reality: land escaped from the sea. Weak as he was, he still clung to the thwart his lips, whispering a silent prayer of gratitude. With waning afternoon, the island took more distinct form as the canoe drifted nearer. It was high and peaked, its valleys blue-shadowed against the paler tone of the sky. Hour by hour, with every lift of the swell, the island rose higher and higher, filling Mafatu's soul with wonder. Hikaru, the only land he had ever seen, was as flat as his hand, but a great single peak crowned this strange island. Trees rose green and fair, tier upon tier of them, from the shoreline into the foothills of the purple mountain. Yuri had caught the scent of the land now, and was quivering with delight. Then from far off came the first muffed thunder of the reef. The boom of the surf, high bursting on the barrier reef. That sound, was it the voice of Moana? Some day, Mafatu, some day. Involuntarily the boy shuddered. Would his ears never be free of the sea god's threat? Mafatu was powerless to guide his craft. He sensed that the current had quickened. He could only watch helplessly as the little canoe, swift as the following gulls, rushed to meet the tide of the island, where they met and churned in a cross sea of conflict. Now across the swells came a sound like a choir of ghostly fishermen, weary with their day's toil, seabirds always complaining, never at rest, while softer, yet rising above it, was another sound, the voice of the reef itself, quieting with sundown, like the reassuring hush of a mother to her child. Night stole up from the face of the sea, enveloping the world. There was no moon, but the black sky was spangled with unguessed millions of stars. Other worlds, other suns. To the watching boy, with the land in the offing, they seemed closer and more friendly. The bottom star of the Southern Cross pointed to the end of the world. A soft land breeze, heavy with the scent of flowers, wafted across the dark water, tantalizing bittersweet. Weak with thirst, the boy drifted now into a merciful sleep. He struggled against it like a weary swimmer fighting a riptide, but his head drooped and his eyes closed. He was aroused at midnight by a thunderous tumult in his ear. All of a sudden he felt the canoe under him lift and flung high into the air. Then down it crashed into splinters upon the reef. Boy and dog were hurled headlong into the boiling surf. The shock of cold water brought Mafatu half back to consciousness. Blindly he struck out, fighting for survival. Yuri, where was he? No sign of the dog. The boy was aware that the canoe must have been hung over the barrier reef, for here the water was scarcely troubled by wind and tide. Now he was swimming. Somewhere ahead, a strip of beach, salt white in the darkness, lured him onward. His muscles did it of themselves, only a will to live. A strip of white sand in the night. He caught a glimpse of a shark's belly, close at hand, but on he swam, his unhampered limbs moving freely through the water. Of a sudden there was something solid beneath his feet. Sand. Mafatu stumbled, staggered, fell to his knees in the shallows. His lips moved in dry, soundless speech. Lying there with the water rippling and breaking over him, he pulled himself half upright, swayed onward. The palms, trooping to the edge of the beach, were motionless in the night air. All the world seemed to hold its breath as this boy climbed out of the sea. He fell to the sand once more. Then, guided by he knew not what impulse, he dragged himself to the edge of the jungle. A murmur of water reached his ears, soft as the chuckle of a pleasant laughter. Water, sweet water. Down the face of an age-worn rock, a small cascade lost itself amid ferns and cool mosses. A ragged, straggling cry broke into Mafatu's throat. He stood upright, to full height. Then he crashed to the mossy bank. One cheek lay in the cool water. The moon lifted above the rim of the palms. It outlined in silver the form of a boy, thin with hunger, naked as the day star. It revealed a small wet dog, dragging himself across the beach to his master's side. Mafatu lay without moving. Before Yuri drank, he touched the boy's cheek with his hot muzzle.